Perfect. Okay, so our presentation today, as I said before, is going to be on negotiation and debates for level B1. First, we are going to start off with some basic vocabulary. So to start, can anyone come up with some vocabulary that might be related to a debate or how to succeed in a debate? Could be different strategies, types of arguments, different sides to a debate. Feel free to send your answers in the chat. Arguments, yes, that's a great one. That's very kind of core to a debate. You want to be able to have an argument, something that you're trying to say. To argue, yes, of course, also a very useful verb in terms of presenting what you have to say. To bargain, that's another really good one. I didn't think of that in terms of being able to kind of work with the other person, see if you can get them to change their mind. To defend, also a great verb in terms of backing up your argument and what you have to say. And our opinions, that's also a really good example in terms of what you think and what your position is. So, oh yes, to explain, yes, another very key verb to have here, just kind of, talking about what you have to say, point of view. That's a really good one. I really like that. And that's, again, very similar to just your opinion and how you see the topic at hand. So here are some other vocabulary terms I have for you all. The first, we have argument, which is a statement or set of reasons presented to support a point of view or persuade others. And in French, it would be argument, so essentially same spelling. Next, we have evidence or preuve, which is information or data used to support or prove a claim or argument. So this is kind of what you use to show why you feel that you are correct. And then next, we have claim or réclamation, which is a statement or assertion made to express a belief or opinion. And then the next one, now this may be a little more up the legal side of things, but cross-examination or contre-interrogatoire is the questioning of a witness by the opposing person to test the credibility and validity of their statement. So you're kind of, whatever they say, you're trying to poke holes in their argument and see if you can catch them in saying something wrong. And next we have rebuttal or réfutation, which is a response that challenges or disproves a claim or argument brought up by the other side. So this is your response to the other person in saying, I don't agree with you and here's why. Next, we have resolution or résolution, which is a formal decision or proposal made in a meeting or debate that is meant to address an issue or a problem. So this is kind of the end result of a debate, what you agree upon. And then next we have fact or fit, and that is something that can be objectively proven or verified to be true. Like, for example, it is a fact that the sky is blue. And then different from a fact, we have an opinion or opinion, which is a personal belief or judgment about something that may not necessarily be based on verifiable evidence. So for example, if you prefer something over the other, that is an opinion. Then we have, this is a little bit of a tricky word, but we have fallacy, which is a mistaken or misleading belief that is not based on valid reasoning or evidence. In French, we say that the term is faux raisonnement, which also translates into English as false reasoning. So it's an argument that is false because it's not based on actual clear evidence. And then lastly, we have counter-argument or contre-argument, which is an opposing argument presented to challenge or refute a claim or position. And so that is similar to a rebuttal as well. And then we also have two different sides within a debate that are really crucial. We have the affirmative, which is the side that argues for something. And then we have negative, which is meant to argue against that. And then that's only great. So we'll do a little testing your knowledge now. Feel free to put your responses in the chat. So what do we call a response or argument that tries to disprove or counter the claims made by the opposing side in a debate? Counter argument. That's very close. The answer is rebuttal. And counter argument essentially is the same thing. So I definitely give credit for that as well. So essentially the two are pretty interchangeable in the sense that both are when you respond to someone's argument and you are trying to say that they are wrong. So both answers are correct. So good job everyone on that one. And then the second question I have for you is, in a debate, which is the side or position that supports or argues in favor of a particular proposition or statement? Affirmative. Yes, that is correct. The affirmative is the side that agrees with and wants to argue for a specific statement. So they will be giving arguments that are more saying why we should do something versus why we should not. And then the last thing I have for you is a little exercise in writing. Form a sentence with this word, fallacy. And I'll provide an example at the end. So get creative. Okay, first sentence, everything you said was just fallacy. Yes, that's really on the line of what we mean by fallacy, in that everything they said was wrong and that they are misled by the information that they have. He has a fallacy in this case, also correct. Good job, Jennifer. In this sentence, fallacy, again, we want to say that the person is saying something that is incorrect. And again, we have Patrick, also great sentence here. Your position is a fallacy. Also good use of the word. An example here would be, during the debate, the speaker pointed out the fallacy in the opponent's argument, highlighting the logical error. So next, we're going to move on to some expressions. This may be a bit of a longer section, but there's some really interesting turns of phrase we can use when we're in a debate, and so let's get started. First, can anyone think of some expressions that may be related to a debate? Can be, as you see here, could be related to introducing your argument, agreeing, disagreeing, wrapping up, providing examples, maybe just anything you can think of that would be a statement that you would use in a debate or a useful expression. And again, you can you're more than welcome to put your responses in the chat, as well as, of course, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to stop and go through those as we go along here. I really believe that that's a great expression to have, because it says that it's talking about what you think and the argument that you want to bring in. I confirm your arguments. Yes. Also great in you're agreeing with the other person and being able to kind of show that you concur with what they have to say. As you can see everywhere, yes, another great example here. That's kind of referencing examples, which is always important in debate. You want to make sure you have some really helpful examples that you can be using. Any others? Okay, we can start going through some example expressions together. So first, we'll talk about introducing your argument. Two possible options, and of course there are many more, are in my view or in my opinion, and from where I stand. Because when you're introducing your argument, you want to use the first person I, or sometimes we, because you want to center yourself in the argument itself and as you present it. And then next, we have some useful expressions for agreeing. For the first one, we have, I agree with you on that point. And then that's a valid argument, and I concur. So the verb concur also means to agree, if that's a helpful explanation as well. Next, we have some expressions for when you're disagreeing with someone. Does anyone want to come up with some examples? Just toss them in the chat. What are some possible expressions you can use to disagree? I completely disagree with you, of course. That's a great one. I don't agree with you on that point. Now, I really like that one a lot. I think you're wrong as well, of course, because I think all of these, I like how all of these are identifying that you do not agree, and especially at least with the mentioning, you can later mention why you don't agree, these are helpful starters in terms of being able to build your argument even further, which is awesome. So some examples are very similar to what you all came up with, so good work. The first is, I don't quite agree with that statement. The second is, I understand your perspective, but I can't support it. The second one, especially, you make reference positive to the other person, but then you have the negative second part of the sentence where you're presenting your own argument and saying, I don't agree, which is a really cool trick to do. And then asking for clarification is another helpful tool in the debate, because sometimes we use different nuances and language that is a little hard to really comprehend. So some examples could be, could you elaborate on that? Or you can also say, can you clarify what you mean by, so that you can really understand the other person's argument, because maybe there's something that you don't agree with in that and you want to be able to know why. Okay, a couple more expressions. Can anyone come up with some examples that are presenting evidence or making a strong point, expressions that you would use to really fortify your argument here? And again, feel free to just put them in the chat. To prove my arguments. Yes, that's a good one. That's a very good one. It's very helpful to mention that you are trying to support your argument when presenting evidence, because you want to make sure, obviously, you're giving relevant evidence. I can emphasize my point with, that's another really good example we have here. That's really stating that you want to bring up something that, again, is going to help your argument. It's obvious. That's a good one for me. I think that's a great one for making a strong point in terms of really just emphasizing the importance of your argument. And okay, so here are some other expressions that you can use. So for presenting evidence, you can say according to, and then just whatever's the name of your source, some statistics, or a study. For example, you could say, according to this article I read on the news, and then whatever argument you find from that. And then another example we have here is for instance, or for example, which is a pretty classic expression to use, and that's usually providing a scenario or a concrete example that supports your argument. And then for making a strong point, we have some that are like, we must consider that. So again, emphasizing with the verb must that it is important to consider a specific part of likely your argument. And then the second example also makes reference to evidence, which is a really helpful tip. And it is the evidence clearly shows that. So really, really pointing at, this is my evidence. You can see this in the evidence. This is my argument. And there you go. And then a couple more expressions. I know there's a lot of really interesting expressions we can use for debates. You kind of have to just look at all of them in different categories and what have you. So next we have, does anyone have some ideas for expressions we can use to acknowledge or address the opposing argument, and also maybe expressing personal experience? Okay, I don't agree, because that's a good one, Erica, in terms of you are saying that you do not agree with what they have to say, and you're going to be very clear about why, which is of course the crux of what we're doing. According to my experience, great example, Stephanie. That's good for when you're talking about your own reasons for why you believe that your argument is correct. Contrary to your point of view. Now, that's a really great one, Jennifer. I like this one because it points out what the other person has to say and acknowledges what they have to say, but then you're about to contradict them and say, well, here's why I think what I have to say is correct. So really great expression to use. Good one. Some other examples for addressing the opposing argument, very similar to what I'm seeing here, which is really awesome. You guys are all coming up with some amazing expressions, and we should definitely be adding these to the list. First one we have here is, some may argue that, but, and then you again would state your argument. Another one is, while it is true that, and then you would mention the opposing argument there, it is also important to note that, and then you mention your argument following that. And then to express personal experience, also very similar here, we have, in my own experience, and then you share what you have kind of experienced and what you've seen and how that kind of relates to your argument. And then this is a good one, especially when it comes to evidence, because you can relate it to like a study or something you've seen or read. You can use, from what I have observed. And that says more, it's not necessarily about your personal experience, but it's about things that you know are going on and that you're aware of. So that also makes it a really good way to bring up some evidence there too. And then don't worry, this is the last part of expressions. Can anyone think of some expressions that would be used to conclude your argument and possibly encourage some further discussion to keep the debate always lively? And again, feel free to just toss them in the chat. to conclude the debate, great summary here. That really just sums up kind of what has been going on throughout the debate. To resume, to sum up, these are really great verbs that we can use to really just kind of talk about how the debate has been going. And especially with the verb resume, that's great for encouraging further discussion because it says you'll get back to the topic later. In conclusion, also a good example from Christine. That's a very classic one, also commonly used in essay writing, which is another fun related topic. Also good for kind of just wrapping up your argument. And to close the debate, that's another really helpful one, especially particularly for this setting, which is a debate here. So we have some examples again, in conclusion, which Christine thought of so wonderfully. And then to sum up, just as Stephanie said, these are ones that just kind of say, at the end of it, this is kind of this is my final argument, this is what I've been trying to say this whole time, or this is what we agree on. And then, to finish, that's another great example, Christine. We can also add that here because you're just kind of saying, we're at the end of this, here's what's kind of been happening, here's what we agree on, or here's at least what I have to say. Because in a debate, sometimes, or at least most of the times, a debate, you just are more saying, here's my opinion. You're not really necessarily trying to come to an agreement with the other person. You're just trying to say, here's what I have to say, and this is why I mean it, and that's it. And then encouraging further discussion, because with debates, they are never really over, as we do see in modern life. So one example sentence is, I think this debate opens up an important conversation about, and again, could be really any topic, and I think this example really is meant to refer to more modern, pressing issues, current events. So that's really what encouraging further discussion means, kind of just bringing it into a different setting, maybe. And then as well, it would be beneficial to delve deeper into. So that can be used to identify a specific part of the debate that you've really been talking about, perhaps an issue you haven't considered, and maybe it's a topic for another debate that you can have later on, which is really, really fun. So we'll do some quick knowledge questions before we move to the next section. So what do you say to someone when you want to acknowledge what they think, but you disagree with their opinion? And again, you can just put your responses in the chat. To contradict, yes. That is a good verb we have here. I think that's definitely applicable. Do we have any other ideas of what we could say? I understand what you mean, but I suggest to consider another opinion. I like this one because you are making reference to what the other person said, but then you're bringing in what you have to say. So I really like kind of the positive and the negative we have going on here from Stephanie. Okay. So this is what the answer is, but again, we have a lot of similar expressions we can use because many of them are pretty applicable within the same category. Oh, and this other response, I agree with you, but from what I have seen, another great one. That is definitely correct here. And the answer that I have here, for example, is I understand your perspective, but I can't support it. So again, the positive and the negative. Any expression really that does the positive and the negative is something that could answer this question. So good work, everyone. And then what do you say to someone when you want to mention a specific source in your argument? According to, yes. That is That is it, yes, because you're mentioning you want to bring up a specific piece of evidence. I underline the fact. That's another good expression we can use here. It would be I focus, another one in terms of you want to specifically highlight, oh, this specific source, and here's how it plays into my argument. So kind of make any expression that makes very clear reference, such as according to or based on, those kinds of things, to note as well. I would definitely say as a verb you can use to note in terms of, for example, this article notes this. That's a great way to bring up some evidence. I like that a lot. And the answer I have here is, in fact, according to, source, statistics, or study. So the three big S's of evidence, I suppose. And then lastly, a little writing exercise. Form a sentence with this expression. It would be beneficial to delve deeper into. So this is where you can get creative in terms of what are some topics you could delve deeper into, or how you would want to discuss something, or you can make reference back to the other person's argument. So feel free to just toss some ideas over in the chat. Do we have any? Okay. It would be beneficial to delve deeper into this evidence. Great job, Jennifer. I like that because you're bringing up a specific piece of evidence that you may have mentioned before, or hey, it could be some new evidence as well. According to the evidence we have, it would be beneficial to delve deeper into the analysis. That's a great sentence, Stephanie. You're actually dragging this even deeper from evidence into how can we analyze what we have here more critically as well. And from Céline, it would be beneficial to delve deeper into how we can win a debate. Also a very good sentence we have here. Of course, it's always beneficial to look more at what are some strategies we can use to win a debate. Always good to reflect on what you've done. So here's an example sentence. It would be beneficial to delve deeper into the consequences of the proposed law to make an informed decision. And from Christine, it would be beneficial to go further. Also correct here. You want to be able to see what you can go further in on points that have been brought up, or perhaps some new points. So I know we're running out of time. We can do a quick little apprentissage culturel. So being from the United States, our presidential debates are always a big topic, especially around election season. So I thought to highlight the Trump versus Biden debate, which is the most recent presidential debate, because it's a great example of two candidates who have different opinions on important topics. And it's a great example of how each person presents their side, how they respond to the other person. And for example, some topics at the time were the COVID pandemic, electing a new justice to our Supreme Court, which is our judicial system in the US, and of course, how to bolster our economy. And then here's another interesting little fun fact about US presidential debates. In 1858, there was a debate between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas. And at the time, they had a series of 7 debates with a 1-hour opening statement each, 90-minute rebuttals each, and then a 30-minute response from the first person. So that must have made for some pretty long debates. I'm not sure I could have sat through that, but I thought that'd be really fun. And just before we go, here are some interesting resources that you all can look through on your own time. We'll make sure to obviously post the recording and the slides on our Cercle des Langues website, same page as where you were able to register actually for this conference. So first we have Legally Blonde, which is a great film. And this is obviously a little more applicable in the legal context, but it's a great film where the main character, at the end of it, she gets to present her argument and interrogate a witness and just really show off a lot of these cool debate techniques. And then we have the presidential debate of 2020, Trump-Biden. That's a really good video to watch. I recommend the first debate because that was one that was more well known, and the issues were a lot more kind of at the forefront, and it was also just a really cool experience to have the first time where these two were facing off. And then the third one is pretty interesting. It is a debate between Bush and Clinton in 1992, and it's another presidential debate, but it involves more of how the people in a debate respond to the audience and audience questions, which is really cool. So thank you all for joining in this wonderful web conference on a Monday evening. Does anyone have any questions that I can answer before we all sign off for the evening? And of course, thank you. Thank you all for coming by. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Erika. I'll stay around. Does anyone if you have questions, feel free to just send them in the chat right now. You know, I'm happy to answer what I can. Thank you, Céline. Thank you, Florence. Okay, well, if nobody has any questions, well then, thank you so much for joining in this web conference for Niveau B1, and we hope to have these up every week. So we plan to do Niveau B on Tuesdays, and then Niveau A on Mondays. Today we did a little switch around just because of planning, and then Niveau C will be on Thursdays. But thank you all for joining. It was a pleasure to have you all, and good luck with the rest of your work, and enjoy